Thank you very much for the words, Hanno. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I hope I am talking calmly enough to deal with the echo. If I'm speeding, make like the Dutch police. Raise your hand and say, there's a speed limit here. It is a great pleasure to take you on a journey from the Hanseatic idea to Hanseatic sources, and from there back to reality today. And one of my points, and Hanno and I knows each other very long, you can see it because my first slide is actually exactly that Hanno has said before. What do you think about Hanse? Yes, Hansaplast, very German. Hanse Advocat, I see. The Hanse University in Groningen, the wrong one. The Hanse Tour, and so on and so on. That means Hanse for you is very positive. And that is actually very astonishing. Because this idea of the Hanse, I'm a Hanseatic historian. Hanse did exist, I have to say that. But the idea of the Hanse is a very German one. And it is a very nationalistic one. Because in the 1920s, 1930s, the Germans have this picture of the Hanse. The Hanse is the organization which has colonized the East, the slaves, brought culture and economic development over all areas in the North. And it's certainly the Germans have been there, and they were the Germans who made this. It's an invention. It's not reality. But when you have asked a German in 1930, he would be very proud of the Hanse, because this is the medieval time of the northern German countries. So either we say you are part of the German Empire, I don't want to be stoned here, or you are Germans, that's good, or you have eaten something and digested something which is produced in another country. And that's really astonishing, because in the Scandinavian area we have the same phenomenon. Even the Danes and the Norwegians and the Swedes are talking about the German Hanse as the great development of German merchants. Beside this concept of proudness, they have also made the German Hanse a very old one. Also, the Germans in the 19th century, because that's Middle Ages, and Middle Ages in the 12th century and the 11th one, not in the 14th and 15th. That's Renaissance and that's modern times. So what happened at that time is that they made the Hanse to a very old organization. And like Hanno said, 800 years Hanse. I'm getting a lot of gray hairs by this, and today I got two more, because it's absolutely nonsense I will show you today. But we shall be aware that when you read older books, you find this imagined overall in the Netherlands, in Scandinavia, and in Germany too. And now, my dear colleagues from Kampen, I have to show this. Another picture, which is an invention from Germany, is this Hanse Koch. It's the ship of the Hanse. Because the Hanse was not only an old organization, a German one, and dominating. No, the Hanse was dominating the sea. Because at that time, when they developed this concept, the German Empire, the new one, was in a struggle with Great Britain about the power of the sea. You know, all these old sea ships and battleships in the First World War. So when the Germans are struggling the British in 1914, they certainly have done this in 1200. And by this, they need a ship. And that's the result. The so-called Hanse Koch. This is a ship really existing at that time, without any question, but has nothing to do with Hanse. And when I'm talking to my students, I say normally Hanseatic merchants get seasick when they only see a ship. And when they're on board a ship, it's a catastrophe. And we don't talk of seasickness now. So what about the Hanse, the Hanseatic League, and its development? To understand the principles of the Hanse, and why Zutphen is actually a very important part of this development, we have to go to this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the oldest maps of Europe. And normally, it's a little bit hard to see, but you have actually went your head upside down because the north is on and down, and the south is upside down, and you can see Saudi Arabia is in the center of the world because this is an Islamic map from the 12th century, produced by authors who traveled in the north in the 10th century already. And in this map, Utrecht is on the map, the Elbe is on the map, the Rhine, the Weser, and in Denmark, the most important trading cities when you're going on the coastline. But we have also many inland on this map. And this map was made in Sicily by an Arabic cartographer. And he made this for the empire, the European one. Also, the Christian empire got an Arabic map about Europe, the territory he was ruling about. And when we are looking to the cities, who is on the map and which cities not on the map, so can we say it's the trading cities are there. And we are going back to Arabian sources. We have some dear poor Arabs traveling around the north, coming to the Netherlands, coming to Scandinavia. They're very upright. The Scandinavians are eating fish all the time. It's absurd. And when they are talking, it's like howling a dog. But the men are very fine because they are painting their eyes. So that's real impressive for Arabian people. But what we can say is that at around 1,000, when these Arabian merchants were traveling, they were traveling on board or beside merchants. And by this, we can draw a map. And I'm sorry, this is only the map, yes, of the sea routes. And this is only the northern parts of the sea routes. We can see that already at that time we call the Viking Age, which you have a very bad experience here in Zutphen. I've learned the Vikings were first and mostly traders. They were traders on routes, and they were connecting trading places all over the world. You can see they have an eastern road going from the Baltic Sea via Novgorod, and this today is Ukraine to Byzantium, and they have a western route going through the North Sea to England, to the Netherlands, and further south, up to Iberia, and after 1100 also in the Mediterranean. These routes could be used for plunder. Also, when they came to Zutphen, they were first here as traders. They made espionage. How rich are they? They haven't seen this church, but maybe the smaller one before. And then say, okay, Zutphen is a rich one. Yes. Good idea to plunder thereafter. But first trading, thereafter plundering, and you shall not murder your trading partners because this is stupid. Not trade again thereafter. So, what is the basis for the Hanseatic League is we have already a trading network. And this trading network existed in Roman times. Also when the Roman Empire reached up to this region. And everyone who has been in a Latin school have to learn Caesar, Gallias omnis divisere, and so on. And beyond the Roman Empire. Also, trade stops not at a wall. Trade stops not when there's a wall. Trade is continuing all the time. And the trade happens in different places. I will show you the Dutch one on the next slide. But trade is economy, like today. And the same rules we can apply today to economy. The economical rules of life were valued also in the Middle Ages. So you have to know where to trade. You have to know to whom you can trade. Also, if they're buyers or sellers, you have something to know. Standardization. You have to. Also, I talked about this yesterday. If you once have bought a liter of milk in Great Britain, you get crazy because they are selling their milk in pints. What is a pint? So that's a problem in trade, and you have to be secure. Also, you don't want to be robbed when going to a place to trade. You are coming with your goods, and either you're engage a security guard. It's expensive to have to feed him. He has ink or you get security from the surroundings. from the owner of the marketplace. Also, when you're going to your supermarket, you won't be robbed there. You want to be sure that the owner of the supermarket make it clear that it's standardized to know where to find your things, and you can go out and in and take your pocket and your money and don't get robbed. All this is called in economical theory transaction costs. Very modern, and this concept got a Nobel Prize. Sometimes it doesn't make it better, but these are costs we normally don't think about. Also, we are thinking about how much we have to pay for this and for how much we can sell it. But there are many other costs around. And what happened in Viking Age is that the merchant, as economical persons, tried to put down these costs, to make things happen cheaply. And the first one is they don't travel alone, because when you have to defend yourself alone, it's hard. Also, they were really men with women with swords and very dangerous, but it's better when you're 2, 5, 6, 8, and so on. And this group of merchants abroad are called Hanse. This is the name for the foreign merchants abroad, and they have to defend themselves because they are lawless. As soon as you're leaving your hometown, as soon as you're leaving you come from, you're free to kill. So you have to defend yourself, and these groups going around trading, defending, they are not nice people, I have to say. Those are called in Scandinavian Fylok, and in High German Hanse. This word is known from Regensburg already from 800. The second point is, you know this, when you will sell something, you can go you can make advertising. I'm selling my garage from my garage, and it's a garage sale, or you can go to a flea market. And a flea market already is a centralization, because there are other people selling, and so you can be aware that more people will come to buy. And this is a kind of centralization. This centralization happened already around 800, that places where people can trade were centralized, and they were given a name from the Roman time, and this name was Germanized, and it's called a Vik. We have the city is called Lundenvik. Today it's built in London. And it's not the old Roman London, it's beside there. Also today, when you're going to London, it's the Strand. And we have, I'm guessing, and maybe I'm totally wrong, but we have this Dutch town, Harderwijk, where we have the same. Or a wijk can be an area of the sea, or a centralized place for trade with certain rights. So the people who are going on trade are going from wijk to wijk, and by this they know how to trade and where to trade. And the most important place here in the Netherlands was clearly Dorestad at the Rhine. You can see it's a very, no, you cannot see it, sorry. It's a very, very huge place along the rivers of the Rhine. On certain times, by Vikings, certainly they first come to trade, and then, we know the scheme. And Dorestad is one of the points, an international network between area and Novgorod. And this was existing already from 800, 900,000 around. Nothing new under the sun. What happened thereafter is that the Christian church was coming. Here, we are in a church. And with Christianity comes new customs. I'm sorry. That you can see here is a priest on the altar, and you can see on the altar the wine, and you can see in the background, you should see on the background the candles. Two main points in the rite of the Christian church. Every altar has to have at least one candle burning 365 days a year, 24 hours. These produce wax, certainly, but not in that amount. So suddenly you have wine. The Norwegians have no wine. There is no wine, even in the Middle Ages, there is no wine growing in Norway. So the Norwegian king, His Highness the Pope, can we use beer instead? Sorry, it fell not of good ground in Rome, I have to say. No, they were forced to use wine. So the dear Norwegian has to import these wine. And first, the priest is drinking wine, then the king, and then the king is drunk, and then the rest of the world is also drinking wine. Suddenly, we have a market for wine. And this is the change which happened around 900,000, 1100 in Europe. The church is getting ground all over Europe, and by this a new market appears. A new market for fish, because you have to avoid meat and fat and so on, and 160 days a year. A new market for wine, for wax, and so on. The Dutch, the people of Zutphen, are part of this development. And they are here. We have this Carolingian place, we have the traders already in place, and they certainly went with the waves. They will not stand here, okay, oh, we are old-fashioned, we made that the old-fashioned way. No, they followed the new times. The people, the traders of Zutphen and the traders of Overijssel, they went to the nearest place to get some of these points, no, exactly fish. And at this place they can go to Great Britain, but like Brexit today, who has to go to Great Britain when you can use other ways? So they went to Norway. Just the way up on the North Sea without small problems. And there they get fish, stockfish and herring, and timber. Because we are at around 1100, the city has burned, I have learned something, 12, okay? And to rebuild a city, you need timber. Because where are the forests of the Netherlands? So you can import two mainly things of the world, fish and herring, fish and timber already. And so there's a constant trade between Norway and the Netherlands. In the middle you see at least the frame. There is another herring place. We shall come back to this. And the frame on the right side, this is the place for the wax. Bees are not only living in hives like today. Bees are original animals of the forest. And in the area between Novgorod and the Ural Mountains, the farmers have to give bee wax as a tax to their lords. So the lords of Novgorod are collecting huge amounts of wax, and by this they are destroying the beehive, so they have need for supply of honey. So we have a surplus of wax there in the east. And that's the starting point for the overall new European trade. Before we come to this, we have to have a closer look on the Norway side. Stockfish comes from the islands on the Atlantic, Bart can talk a lot about, and was collected in the city of Bergen and Trondheim on the middle west coast of Norway. Timber comes from the southeast of Norway, also the city of Oslo today, the capital. This is the timber route of Norway from the mountains there. And when you go a little bit southwards on the right side, today it's Sweden, because Sweden has conquered all, there you have a very huge herring fishery. So these three places are where the Zutphenians are in the 11th and 12th centuries. That are the places where the Overijssels go to before around 1115. What about this yesterday? Lübeck, sitting there in the south coast of the Baltic Sea. Lübeck is a very provincial, small town compared to Zutphen at that time. Very small, very unimportant. But Lübeck is on the route from one of the most important salt sources in this area, the salt source of Lüneburg in Lower Saxonia. And when you want to go with the salt to the sea to salt your fish, you're ending your way in Lübeck, and then you get seasick. So that's the way. And the Lübeckians first went to the next island to the right side, to the east. It's called the island of Rügen, where today the city of Stralsund is. And then they have seen that a little bit northwards is an international market. This market has been there since 800. a Viking Age market. Also, if your wife is in the need of a new gold bracelet, you go to this market. If you need a new slave, you go there. And by the side, there's the huge fishing factories of this time. And they are using a lot of salt. So the Lubeckians, not stupid, went from the south, a little bit northwards, to this place on the Sound. Today there were between the Scandinavia, I showed you this, and the city of Copenhagen, where I'm teaching, and the Soundtoll area in the north. So the Lubeckians come not only with salt, they come all with their other products, getting the fish home and were very happy. And this market was already seen by many, many people from all over Northern Europe. They were used to it, come to this place. And the king was there, and the press, and everyone was there. So at this place developed around 1150, 1200, a huge herring market. This place is on the peninsula, it's called Skanør. Skanør is very modern Scandinavian, it's Danish actually, I mean, but the original name was Skanør. It's the Danish island. And Skanør was known already from Pliny, and this is the reason why this area is named Scandinavia, from this very dangerous part. And there on this peninsula, you have a lot of sand, like in the Netherlands, nothing else, only sand. And there you can meet the fishers. You have fresh water to wash the herring and to put it into tons. And here, an international market developed because of the Lubeckian salt, the herring now needed for the religious customs, and because the Lubeckians met many people from Northern Europe. And the Zutphens, they are not stupid. They are already there. 500 kilometers north, they are fishing their herring. And suddenly they see, wow, there's a market. There are the place. And there we can also meet other guys from the area. And so around 1150, the Overijselburgers and the Newburys there in the south met at the market at this peninsula, which is called the Skanør Island. And I hope you can see it, or maybe not. This is the peninsula of Skanør, and the first city there. So, and the first so-called fit, also the place for traders, is the city of Zutphen, which is there before 1200. We really don't know when they actually are there, but the Overijssel cities come there, get their own little small area for processing the fish, own rights and own reef, and so on, so on, so on. And there they met their colleagues from the other cities on an international market. This market is in the middle of the trading network in Europe, the northern midpoint, so to see. Other midpoints are Osnabrück or Dortmund, for example, and so on. What has this to do with the Hanseatic League? Nothing at all, to say. The Hanseatic League wasn't existing at that time. There's no idea about the Hansa, no idea of the Hanseatic League. But what's the reason? We have to look at the trading networks, and I'm sorry for this picture because the circle there is the circle around Zutphen. And what you can see here is Zutphen is lying in the middle of a spindle net of ways. The Buckle, the IJssel, and the trading routes are meeting in this town. And so we have in the international system of trade routes, some we call it knots, also places where many routes come together. When we're looking here, we have Zutphen on the left side, we have Soest in the middle, and Dortmund a little bit. So we have Cologne and the other cities in the south, and so on and so on. They are just motorway crossing points, you know this, where are the biggest queues when there is an accident in one of your motorway crossings. And that is the same with the trade. So, when the traders of the Overijssel now are in Denmark, and there's a problem with this stupid Danish king, they went home and then they were talking to their colleagues. The colleagues they are trading together with in Denmark. So they're meeting in groups. And these groups develop inside, the ones are political entities, also the cities of Overijssel, the cities of the dukedom of the Count of Gelderland. Or they can also develop the cities at the same trading route. Also those we are most connected to by trade. Those cities we can reach over by our trade. And they go over borders. Also, these cities are not only the cities of Gelderland, they are also cities in other dukedoms, other areas. And so they form groups of the same interest. And when you have a look on a map, yes, you can see at least different forms and different colors. These are trading groups in the northern part of Europe. These are areas which have the same interest of trade. They not belong to the same lord. They not belong to one river or one road. They are these cities trading together, laying on the same routes, on the same rivers, and so on. And they form naturally groups of interest. So they will meet to solve problems with stupid Danish kings, or French kings, or the emperor, or I have no idea. They will talk about taxes. They will talk also about standardization. It's stupid when every town has its own mint and then its own currency. It's like today, when you're coming to Scandinavia, you have to change in Danish kroner and in Swedish kroner and in Norwegian kroner and so on. It's like in the old days. I have some guilders also back at that time. And when we are old, you know how it's irritating. You have to change and you have to count every time. So it's much better when you have a standardization in your area at least, if not in huge areas. And this is the basis for the development of the Hanse. Regional groups develop these meetings. Or Lübeck and those cities there is one of many groups meeting all the time. And first you start with one problem, the kingdom. But there you have spent a lot of money to the hotel, to the room. You drunk a lot of wine. So why only talk about trade? You can also talk about politics. Wives, daughters, I have no idea. What you do when you're like you're in the sauna or something else. You talk about a lot of the world. And so these meetings get an agenda which is not only economical or political, it's surrounding everything. And suddenly, like a place in Scania, you have a problem with the King of Denmark, and you are not longer alone, because not only the people of Overijssel had the problem, but the Wendian cities have the same problem with the same stupid king. So what is naturally, you send one of your councillors, one of your members, to the other meeting of these other groups and say, hey guys, we have the same problem, shall we not solve this problem together? And by this we can see that the several groups come together in meetings, or they started in the 13th century and developed up to the middle of the 14th century. And then they were invited more often, and so on and so on. One example. The Danish king is stupid. I have to say, it's Her Majesty the Queen is my lord, and she is the highest share of my boss. But her grandfather, he was not the best politician, I have to say. And so he made some wrong choices as Valdemar IV in the 1360s. And yes, who's very angry for him? Well, it's the Overijsselers and the Prussians, because he's struggling in this area in Scania. And the Lübeckians are in the middle. And now they come together and try to get an alliance, to get some power. And I'm not sure if you can say, yes, you can see different colors at least. Here we have the different groups of trade inside the area. We can see the Lübeckians, they are forced to be with, because they're in the middle, there's like a sandwich on a ketchup. So they are pressed from both sides and they're coming out there. They don't want to, but they have to. But the other areas around us, some of these, I've said, call these are positive uninterested. That means, okay, they're sending money. For example, the cities at the south, Copenhagen, Malmö, are sending some money to finance the war against the King of Denmark, their own lord. the cities of Saxonia are in positive interested. But the cities of Westphalia said, no, we have never been on the sea. We are not interested in a war on the sea. We will never be on the sea. The city of Cologne hasn't done one thing to them. They hosted the meeting, but nothing more. So we can see that different groups come to different resolutions, and they fought a war twice. Actually, the first they lose, and the second they won. And the Over-Islers get the most out of these wars. The Lubeckians, like the ketchup, are pressed into, and the Prussians were huge losers in the first war, and then they have the second. This war in the 1360s has shown to the people that economic force and going together can have political results. So, two merchants groups coming together, forcing a king, and by this putting down his power. And as a result, they invented a new name, they invented a new branding for this together. In the 1350s, the city of Rostock branded it as the Hansa of the Germans. You see, it's a little bit fluffy. And in 58, short before the war, we have a meeting, and suddenly, yes, that's the brand. We have to. They mentioned the Hansa, the German Hansa. So you can see very short branding. Also, modern inventors are happy about this. 7 times in 12 chapters, they are just putting it down. And so they're sending it to the city of Bremen, and they say, what? What's that? We have no idea where you're talking about. But they find a brand, and until 1379, they developed the brand as the connection of these different groups in Europe trading together. Around 1400, this is centralized, and then we have the German Hansa, as you know. What does that mean for the cities of Overijssel? They are members of the Hanse, but they are also regional groups. As it called, the city of the Zuiders is Zeeland, Holland, Belgium. So 4 groups together, as we have the small groups, we have the bigger groups, and they are part of the huge framework of the Hanse. They are there when they want to be Hanseatic cities, because it helps their interest. They can be at home when they are not interested, or save a lot of money. So, to come together, because I have 3 minutes left, what you shall take out of this. The trade was there before the Hanse. The networks were there before the Hanse. The Hanse developed out of regional interest. The cities of the Zuiderzee, or the cities of Overijssel, were one of the most driving parts in this. The war of the 30s, 60s was an Overijssel war, actually. And by they have shown okay, play together, we can reach political games and so on. Now I've talked a lot of ships and sea, and I've talked about Skok, which is not the symbol of the Hanse. Most of these cities, most of these regions were inland cities. So Zutphen is not only trading with Scania and Norway, Zutphen is trading to Westphalia. And Zutphen is a huge city because it's connecting the sea trade and the inland trade. So most of the Hanseatic towns are inland towns, and most of the regions are inland regions. That means that Zwolle, Zutphen, and I made the same mistake yesterday. Zutphen and Gelders, no, it's gone. Zutphen and Gelders are a part of this huge network, inland network, and the city is getting huge because it's connecting the inland trade with the exterior trade. And at the last point, this trade is actually part of a wider one, because it's not only Northern Europe, it's all of the Europe, and I hope, no, it's gone. It's part of the Afro-Eurasian network. We have networks from Australia to Zutphen, and from Zutphen to Guinea in West Africa. So we are not only part of the Hansa here, we are part of a bigger one, the world-spanning, without America certainly, the world-spanning network. So Zutphen is one stepping stone on the huge network of the Hanseatic League, And it was here before the Hanseatic League. It gets high day before the foundation of the Hanseatic League. And when the city was reached, it was one of the founding mothers of this league. And this is not Lübeck, it's Overijssel. Thank you. If you have enjoyed this lecture, come back next year.